Harihi Om. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Tat Purushaya Vitmahe Vakratundhaya Dhimahi Dhanho Dhandit Prachodaya. Om Gajananam Mahakayam Vicknarajam Vinayagam Vishvesham Vishvashaksham Ganeshayam Namo Namaha. Om Gurut Brahma Gurut Vishnu Gurut Devo Maheshwaraha Gurut Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Sarva Lokhanam Visajeva Paroginaha Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Sri Dakshinamurthaye Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Sai Shvararphanamastu. Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sarirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarotam Pravaram Muninam Pathanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi Abahu Purushakaram Shankachakrasidharinam Sahasrasirisham Shvetam Pranamami Pathanjalim. Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Yogishwaraya Arpanamastu. Anyada Sharanam Nasti. Om Tat Sat, and welcome to week 4 on our journey into the Yoga Sutras. So far, we've looked at 28 verses out of the 196. Today in week 4, we move on to verses number 29 up to verse number 42. Okay, so verse 29, some of the verses, especially the first few verses, 29, 30, 31, right up to about 33 or 34, they're quite long. Okay, so verse 29 is Tatha Pratyak Chetana Adhigamapi Antaraya Abhyayava. Right? Tatha means that which is, what is resultant. Pratyak means to move backwards or to go inwards. That means the opposite direction. Atyak, pratyak. Atyak going forward, pratyak backwards. Chetana means your sense of, like Chaitanya, Chetana means sense of consciousness. Adhigama means a sense of accomplishment. Api, as well as. Antarya. Antarya means obstacle. Abhava cha means it's not existing. Abhava, not existing. Cha means and. So if you turn it the other way around, opposite. As a result of continuing, I'm going back to what we looked at the last verse, which was focusing on Omkara, right? The recitation of Om. So 29 continues from there by saying, as a result of reciting Om continuously, there is an invertness of the sense consciousness. And when you have an invertness of sense consciousness, there is a disappearance of obstacles that curtails or curbs your progress. So that's what verse 29 means. So we are looking at, in the Ashtanga Yoga, right? So we looked at the 4 stages, and then we look at the 4 stages after. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, then Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. So 2 stages. One perhaps is at the physical stage, right? Like yama, niyama, asana, and pranayama is physical stuff that you need to do. Pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi is perhaps the intellectual or the mind-based stages. So this invertness that Maharishi Patanjali is referring to is the Pratyahara stage, the inner mind stage. So as a result of continuously chanting the Omkara, the chanter gets a stage of accomplishment or attaining a mastery of the fifth stage, which is Pratyahara. Pratyahara, as I've said before, is internalization of the sense consciousness. Internalization of the sense consciousness. Whatever is happening externally does not affect you, does not impact you, does not compel you, does not convulse you in any way. Right? Usually, this type of consciousness from outward going inwards, that means from the gross to the subtle, from the gross material world into the subtle subconscious world. And that the pathway to that is provided by Omkara. Right? Omkara, A-U-M, Akara, Ukara, Makara, right? Akara from the diaphragm. Ukara is vibrating here at your Vishuddhi chakra. And Makara is in between the Vishuddhi and Ajna chakra, you are vibrating. And how powerful you vibrate, that will activate this, and this will activate Sahasrara. Right? Forget about the Sahasrara, just talk about the vibration that goes between the Vishuddhi and the Ajna chakra. Right? Now, as soon, the more you do it, the better you become. Right? It's not just the physical act of repeating Om. The physical act is what you are doing every time, you sit at bhajans or kirtans, or every time you have a prayer or a puja, you are saying Om. So by now, you should have reached a certain stage. So understand, it's not the physical repetition of Om, it's the internalization of the sound vibrations from the external recitation to the internal, right? Internalization. That's what it means. So once you continue, the sadhaka or the prospective yogin continues to do it consistently, constantly, then he or she will master the internalization of the sense consciousness. And many obstacles will go away because you lift yourself out of the world of material dimensions where such hindrances can exist. So I said to you, before you start, you sit in a quiet place where you are not disturbed by sound or sight, visuals or sound. Lock yourself in that room, and then it becomes a bit more easier, isn't it? You have to transcend this. You have to transcend and lock and silence all the external sounds, including that of your own mind, before you can internalize the sense consciousness. That is precisely what he's saying in verse 29. Right? What is he saying in verse 30? 30 is a bit long as well. 30, he's saying, Vyadi, Sthayana, Samsaya. This is individual words, so I'm saying it individually. Right? Pramada, Alasya, Aviradhati, right? Bhranti darshana, alabdha bhumik katva, anavastit tattvani, chitavikshepa te antarayaha. So if you want to say it as a sentence, you would say Vyadhisthayana samsaya pramada alasya avirati bhranti darshana alabha bimuktva anavastittvani chitavikshepa te antarayaha. That means he's saying there are certain things. Since he spoke about hindrance, he's now talking about these hindrances. Vyadi, disease. Vyadi is disease. Sthayana means lazy, like gloominess, laziness. You are idle. Idle is a better word. Samsaya means doubt. Pramada, right? Pramada means in a sense of inattentiveness, like Mada, Matsarya, Mada. Pramada means a higher sense of inattentiveness. Alasya. Alasya means, lack of motivation. You're not proactive, lack of energy. Avirathi. Avirathi means you are more prone to the external senses than you are to your internal power of suppressing those senses. Branti dharshana. That means you look at something, but you have the wrong view, a mistaken view, if you like, right? Wrong perception or wrong conception. Alabdha bhumikatva. That means not being able to maintain any progress. You keep doing the same thing, but you're not maintaining a progress that has not been made. Bhumikatva means you're being grounded. That means you cannot lift off, in other words, right? Anavastitattvani, unsteadiness in the progression. That means very slow progress or no progress. Nil progress or slow progress. Chitta vikshepaha. Chitta vikshepaha means scattered thoughts. You're talking about the mental, emotional energy, right? Your thoughts scattered all over the place. That means you're neither here nor there. Hence the word monkey mind. Te means these. That means all the vyadi, stayana, samsaya, pramada, alasya, all these are te. Antaraya means obstacles. Antaraya means obstacles. So he's saying the obstacles that can prevent internalization, moving from 29 to 30, he's saying the obstacles that can prevent internalization of your sense consciousness are things like disease, yadi, idleness, thayana, doubt, samsaya, inattentiveness, pramadha, lack of energy, prone to sensuality, mistaken views, not being able to maintain progress, right? Or no progress attained, unsteadiness in progression, scattered thoughts, scattered mental and emotional energy. He's saying these are the things that can stop an aspirant from progress. That means if you don't have progress, you're continuously doing the same thing without any fruit, without any fruits. So he's now saying pratyahara, if done properly, can give you this sense of internalization. And then he's identifying things that can stop you from getting that internalization. So he's basically identifying a problem and he's giving you the solution to the problem, right? He says the pratyahara practice, if done properly, can reverse all of this, And it's a simple act of recitation of Om. Akara, Ukara, Makara. This is the turning point in the life of a yogi, he says. Patanjali says. So he says, let me talk about each one of these now. And he starts with Vyadi. Vyadi means disease. Now, yoga is not only for someone who is healthy. Yoga is also for someone with disease. Hence, he's talking about disease here. So disease, many think it's an obstacle, especially to a yogi. Or you got a disease, you can't do yoga, right? Now, what did I say? Mind, body, and then only spirit, right? If your mindset is weak, then your body will follow suit. But if your mindset is strong, you can make your body strong, right? Regardless of the disease that you're having, right? A person without legs can still be a fantastic yogi, right? I mean, Patanjali himself had no legs. Only the upper torso was human form. Below that, below his navel, he was snake, right? So he's saying, don't let disease come in the way of your progress as a yogi, right? The body is the means of deliverance. But if it is unhealthy, then our mind and our emotion will also be disturbed in such a way, isn't it? So as to cause some form of resistance and some form of desistance for practice. You have the mind, no, not today, I don't feel so well. Not today, my leg is paining. Not today, my hand, that sort of thing. So a yogi should be realistic, right? A yogi should realize that he is a human being, right? And he should also realize, and he should not expect that his human form will be free from diseases. I also said to you, disease is when your body is no longer at ease. So it is at a stage of dis-ease, right? So you can, through yoga, reverse that stage of disease. There are many, many, many exercises and mudras. Today I'll be telling you at the end, I'll be giving you one or two mudras. Okay, so let's talk about the next one, sthayana. As I said, is laziness. Laziness is what? Is basically lack of determination. By constitution, some of us are made like that. Some people just do not have much determination. The slightest thing can make them, waver, desist, go off at a tangent, right? Because their minds are so fickle. That is why in the Yoga Sutras, the yoga science, the science of yoga says, first strengthen the mind and the body. And there is a relationship between the two, and the two can then latch onto the soul, right? Now, a lot of people think just by going to a few yoga classes, they can have a quick fit, fast track, or quick liberation without understanding the basic requirement. They adopt the view that anyone or everyone can go and get liberation, in a jiff like that, just because they sit and they learn a few exercises. So long as the mind is not tamed, the body can repeat exercises so long. For however long a time, there will not be a change, right? You must have what we call the inner drive, gomsha. This is called gomsha. You must have the inner drive to work towards liberation. For example, if you're going to, farm the land, and you put the contraption on the cow, you think the cow on its own, it's got the contraption, right, that can fertilize the land, or that can, dig the land up. But you think the cow on its own motion will go? No. You have to push the cow, and you have to direct the cow to go here, go there, so the land becomes plowed. Same way, you have to direct your mind. They go here, do this, get that, seek this, see that, visualize this, feel that, experience this. Then the mind will do as it's told. If the mind is given complete freedom to do what it wants, then you will never get to go where you want to go. So if you are lazy, or if you are idle, you always need some kind of push, some kind of external inertia, then you need to find a teacher, an acharya, a guru, who is able to give you the extra attention that you need. The idle-minded person can become liberated if his Atma or spirit is connected existentially to a higher yogi, or as I said, a teacher or an acharya. In the same way, Ekalavya in Mahabharata did not have a teacher, but he saw the great Dronacharya teaching the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And he actually went and asked him, can I be your student? And of course, he was chased away, saying, you are not a Kshatriya, so out. This is only for Kshatriyas. But he was so captivated by Dronacharya as a teacher that he made a statue of Dronacharya out of mud. And he worshipped him, right? And through that existential connection between Ekalavya and Dronacharya, this is where, as I said, if the mind is open and you can move from the subconscious to the superconscious, you will get everything that you need in order to become what you aspire to be. Ekalavya became a first-class archer, better than Arjuna, better than Karna. And the whole course of the Mahabharata would have changed if he was allowed to continue as the primary archer in the whole story. So, of course, when Dronacharya met him and he fell at his feet and said, "You are my master, verily my master," Dronacharya realized that he cannot let this supersede what was to become, because Dronacharya is also a yogi, great yogi, master, teacher. So he said, "That's fine. Since you say I have taught you, that means as a student, you have to give me Guru Dakshina." At which point Ekalavya says, "Ask whatever it is you seek, I will give." Dronacharya says, "Will you give what I ask?" Ekalavya says, "Yes, I will." He says, "Give me your right thumb." And without a second of thinking, he took his dagger, cut his head. That's the end of his archery. So Arjuna and Karna then became the top two, right? As to who is better, I think I mentioned when I did Bhagavad Gita, right? That Arjuna was at one point saying that he's the greatest archer when Krishna put him right? He said, every point in time, right? You had help in every way. And at every point in time, Karna only had what you call the offensive against him. So do not for a moment think that you, on your own efforts and initiative and skill, you're the greatest archer. You had help from every corner. Karna didn't. Anyway, so like this is the point I'm making is, if you want to go and become a great yogi, either you do it yourself on your own, but if you have this tayana, this is what Patanjali is saying, if you're lazy, if you're idle, you always need to be pushed, then you have to connect to a spirit, like Patanjali, Although for me, for example, I can only talk about my own experience. Although I have never met Adi Shankara to me is like Dronacharya to Ekalavya, my first and foremost primordial guru. So every time I want to do something, I just give him the first sense of, obeisance. And of course, Swami is also there, right? Swami is current. I'm talking about, going back. So he's called Jagat Guru Adi Shankaracharya. So in that sense, if you can latch on to a great yogi, well, yogis are all existing in the form of energy. So for you to open your mind and latch on to that energy is not difficult. That also requires some preparation, right? Now, if, for example, you are a small boat, right? But your engine is not powerful enough to push or take the boat on a journey. So the engine dies off constantly. What you need is a slightly bigger boat that can tug you, T-U-G, tug you, pull you. And if that boat has got some problem, a bigger boat can also tug. So this is what we call tugging, right? The shipping industry is called tugging. So a small boat can be tugged. It's a small, like a rope. The bigger boat is pulling the smaller rope. The smaller boat's engine is not working. So you are the small boat. You need a greater yogi to tug you. The only question is, how long will that yogi drag you along if you continue and remain to be idle-minded? That is the key question, right? And Patanjali also says idle-mindedness can be overcome with two things. What I said in the first week, abhyasa, vairagya, right? Practice and detachment. He repeats this in this, like, detach yourself from sensual energies and practice higher sense control. Finish, right? That's laziness. Then doubt. The slightest, smallest doubt can give you a huge problem. Everything begins with the small doubt, isn't it? So yogis must be persistent enough to push doubts out of their mind. Samsaya. Otherwise, the doubt will lead to the next problem or the next, issue that will stop progress, which is called inattentiveness. So pramada, right? Pramada is also related, inattentiveness is also related to idleness, because this is based on your innate tendencies having to do with the scattering energies of the mind, isn't it? It is by mastering the stage of pratyahara, full concentration, then inattentiveness can be moved away. The forces of inattentiveness can be driven out so that the path becomes more clear. Because if you don't do that, the doubt, the inattentiveness will lead to a lack of energy. Alasya, he says this. Alasya. And alasya means, the absence of endeavor, if you like. Absence of endeavor or the lack of energy. Right? There'll be no progress if you don't have that. And that will lead to the next stage, which is avirati. Avirati means proneness to sensuality. So you're sitting and suddenly you hear some music and then your eyes open and say, where is this music coming from? Then you see some activity going on, automatically your mind goes there. No detachment. Right? This is proneness to sensuality. When you go into meditation, what I said to you, silence everything else outside. Open the inner sight that sees inside your mind. Quiet. Or he says the next one is Bhranti Darshana. Bhranti Darshana means mistaken view. If you think just sitting down for 10 minutes, right, is enough for you to tame the buddhi organ, then you're wrong. Then you're on a mistaken belief. The buddhi organ has to be continuously worked. You continuously have to chisel it. Chisel all the doubts out, all the inattentiveness out, all the lack of energy out, all the avirati out, all the vyadi out, all the sthayana out. All this, then only the purification of the buddhi begins, right? And all the dismissals can happen. Take out vyadi, take out, all the things that I've just spoken about: doubt, inattentiveness, lack of energy, proneness to sensuality, mistaken views, all this. Then only, you can continue. Otherwise, your progress will be unsteady, and at one point there'll be a question mark. Anavastitvani, that's what it means. Unsteadiness in progress. Anavastitvani. Unsteadiness because of your external, diversions. Externally, they force their way to you internally and block your mind from continuing to do what it wants to do. So your mind then comes out of the stage of what you are doing and goes into the sensualities and goes into what is the worldly activity there. Right? That's why in the science of yoga, there's specific times in the day when you should do it. For example, between 4 and 7 a.m. Right? And the mudras that you do, I'll tell you this towards the end. There are different mudras that you should do in the daytime when the sun is up. And there are different mudras which you can only do when the sun is down. Right? I'll explain towards the end. But if you don't, practice this in the proper way, then everything else becomes a problem. Your state of health, your state of thought, your state of being, external issues, internal issues, there's no balance, right? So you need to have someone who can guide you properly, right? Like I said, the little boat needs the lighthouse. Big boat also needs the lighthouse. And the largest of boats also need the lighthouse. It doesn't matter at what stage, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, lighthouse is a lighthouse. It shows you the way. That is the role of a yogin or a teacher or a master or an acharya or a guru, right? You must be taught and taken on that journey, right? So pranayama and pratyahara goes hand in hand, because without doing pranayama properly, you cannot go to the next stage of pratyahara. Without pratyahara, you cannot master dharana. It's just one-pointed focus. One-pointed focus, dharana will only come when pratyahara is vibrating properly. Then only you can go into dhyana. straight going to dhyana does not work. There will be problems. Okay. Verse 31. Dukha dhaurmanasya angame jayatva swasaprasvasaha vikshepa saha bhuva. Dukha dhaurmanasya angame jayatva swasaprasvasa vikshepa saha bhuva. Saha bhuva means dukha. Dukha, opposite of sukha, means distress or sadness. Dhaurmanasya means like depression. Dhaurmanasya. Angame jayatva. Angam is your body. Jayatva means a sense of disease. Where it's not at ease. That means the body is nervous. Like anxious. Swasap prasava means labored breathing. Vikshepaha means distractions. Sahabhuva means these are the things that you will see symptomatically. In other words, distress, depression, nervousness, and labored breathing. Breathing is a natural process. So it cannot be something that you make yourself do. Hence the word labored breathing, right? So in verse 31, Patanjali says, distress, depression, nervousness, labored breathing, these are the symptoms of a distracted state of mind. Beautifully saying, physical distress. That's why you should always be in a comfortable position, sitting comfortably. It doesn't matter if you cannot sit on the ground and do Padmasana, or you cannot sit on the ground and do Vajrasana. Vajrasana is where your knees are bent and you're sitting on the back of your heel. Padmasana is the lotus position. Right? You can just sit on a chair with your back aligned. The important thing is your chakras are straight. Right? So physical distress, so even when you're a little bit uncomfortable, automatically the distress will send signals to your mind to say, I'm uncomfortable. I'm in a state of disease. I'm in a state of discomfort. Depression. Depression is when you're not happy. If you're not happy means you're sad. In two states of mind, right? Black and white, right and wrong, positive and negative, good and bad, happiness or sadness. There is no in between. Unless you attain the state of indifference, like the Buddha. It doesn't make a difference then whether a state of happiness or state of sadness. It is a state of being. Mental equilibrium is such where you don't experience what you feel because your experience is higher than those feelings and thoughts. Hence the weight. Angameva jayatva. The body's nervousness. All these are symptoms of a distracted state of mind. Emotional distress. Arguments, all of those things. These things, of course, will always be there, especially depends on which stage of ashrama you are, right? You are brahmachari or you're a grahastha, more in a grahastha, or the vanapratishtha stage where you should be moving away from all your familial ties, right? Into the last stage, which is sannyasa or yogisthanam, right? So he's saying, if you do not do pranayama well, then you cannot reach the stage of pratyahara. If you cannot reach the stage of pratyahara, you cannot have one-pointed devotion or focus. That is because of all the distress, depression, nervousness, and labored breathing. Because what did he say in 30? He said, Vyadi, Stayana, Pramadha, Alasya, Avirati, all this is. This will stop you because they'll make you mentally depressed. They'll make you, they'll make you in a physical state of distress. Then you go, it's labored breathing. Breathing is natural. You must get the intelligence. That's why I said, if you keep putting yourself in a stage of karma kanda, you will never, jump to the stage of jnana kanda. One of the mudras is jnana mudra. Jnana mudra, to give you that jnana. So you must know how to sidestep the human association of being, enchanted by the senses. The disenchantment from the senses. And yes, 31 talks all about that, right? Then 32, he says, Tat pratishedhartham ekatattva abhyasaha. Tat means that. Pratishedha means to remove, to take away. Artham, prasidhe artham, prasidartham. Artham means for the sake of. Eka means one. Tattva means philosophy or dogma. Right? Tattva. Tattvam. Abhyasa means practice. So for the removal of obstacles, now 32, see 29, 30, 31, he gave you the problems. From 32, he's giving you the answers. For the removal of these obstacles, there should be a practice of a standard method used in the pursuit of breathing. Everything goes back to breathing. Your life starts when the doctor takes you out of your mother's womb. He starts the breathing. That is when life begins. And from that time you breathe. Nobody tells you to breathe. Like they tell you to eat. Go and have a bath, go and eat your food, go and do your work, go to school, go here, go there, go. Anyone in the world tells you, even if it's your own mother or father, breathe. Nobody tells you because the natural process. But that natural process we have forgotten because we have been so caught into everything else that we do not have a standard method of breathing, which if we had, would take us away from all the bondage to these external senses. How beautifully he's saying it. One has no alternative. Ranjali is saying, one has no alternative using methods which are only successful in part. This is why he's saying, using a practice of standard method as a complete method of breathing, not this method or that method or a bit of this or a bit of that, Of course, different yoga teachers will teach you different things, right? That is all interpretation of the different teachers. Maybe they prefer this method to that method or that method to this method. But what I am focusing on, what Yoga Sutras deliver conceptually, right? How they are meant to be understood. So I'm not talking about the practical teachings of yoga teachers and different yoga schools or yoga institutes, right? Even in Bhagavad Gita, I think when I spoke about the Bhagavad Gita, more than a year ago, which all of it is on YouTube anyway, you can watch. If you go to my channel, embodimentsoflove.org, you can see that Krishna told Arjuna. What did he say to Arjuna? He said, Asam sayam mahabaho mano durnigraham chalam abhyesana tu kaunteya vairagyache grahyate. He's saying, hey Arjuna, the mind is indeed difficult to control, right? Mano durnigraham chalam, he's saying to Arjuna. It is unsteady. It is easily penetrated by anything and everything external to it. But, he's saying, abhyasana tu kaunteya vairagyanache grahyate. He's saying, by continuous practice, by breathing, you can control it, you can restrain it, and you can train it. He's talking about the mind. So it's fantastic, right? 33, he then goes on to talk about how to achieve, what is the process you need to do in order to achieve it, right? He's saying, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upekshanam, Sukha, Dukhya, Punya, Apunya, Visayanam, Bhavanatha, Chitta Prasadhanam. That means he's saying Maitri. Maitri means friend. Like Mitra, we say in Hindi, Mitra. Maitri. Friend or Maitri means friendliness, if you like. Karuna. Karuna Murti It's compassion. Mudita. Mudita means what? Joyfulness. Upekshanam. Upekshanam means indifference. Indifference. Indifference to what? Indifference, that means you are in a state of neutrality. Neutrality, neutrality. That means you don't take sides. Right? Sukha, as you know, is happiness. Dukha, as you know, is distress. Punya is virtue. Apunya is vice. Visayana means you are sitting, standing, walking, and suddenly you see something you're attracted to. That sense of attraction to external objects or attractive objects. Straight away, you are just caught by that. So whatever is it that you are doing or you were thinking or you were, in your mind, completely sidetracks to that thing. Bhavanataha. Abstract meditation through the control of chitta, means your thoughts, can give you the sense of prasadhanam. That means a sense of serenity. So basically, what he is saying is, this whole verse, the abstract meditation or the method of meditation resulting from a serene mind, where the thoughts are controlled by a sense of friendliness, maitri, a sense of compassion, karuna, a sense of mudita, means, like one of Swami's bhajans, prema mudita manase kaho, rama rama ram. That means he's saying a happy mind, a joyful mind is one who reverberates in the name of Ram. Right? So mudita means joyfulness or cheerfulness. Upekshanam means indifference. Right? Whatever happens, my thought is, I surrender to you. Right? I surrender to you. Sukha, happiness. Dukha, distress. So he's saying, all this you can control if you do not respond to distress, virtue, and vice. He gives you all the problems, and then he's saying, only if you have friendliness, compassion, cheerfulness, joy, love, and a sense of non-responsiveness. That means you are indifferent. This is what upekshanam means. Indifferent to happiness, sadness, distress, virtue, vice, like the Buddha, who was completely indifferent. And that's when he said, I'm liberated. I'm liberated because I have managed to control my mind. And this goes back to the second verse. Remember when I did in the second week, yoga chittavriti nirodha, right? The skill of a great yogi is demonstrated by the conscious non-operation of the vibrational modes that connect him to the external senses. Because the mind otherwise becomes turbulent. Can you imagine a boat on stormy seas? How unsteady it is. Even Shankaracharya, in his great work, Bhajagovindam, says, Nalini Jalamati. He says your life is like so temperamental and so uncertain, like a drop of water on a leaf. Tattvat jivita atishaya chapalam, vidhi vyadi abhimanagrastam, lokam shokam hadam cha samastam. Exactly what Patanjali said in verse 33. Only if you're non-responsive to all the external things like happiness, sadness, distress, virtue, vice, then you can elevate yourself by cultivating friendliness. Treat everybody alike. By administering compassion. Show love, compassion. Right? Make compassion your passion. By maintaining a cheerful and joyful demeanor. Doesn't matter what others say to you or what others think of you, you can give joy and love, isn't it? Without regard for that. And by an overall attitude of neutrality, of non-responsiveness. Good, thank you. Bad, thank you for the experience, making me strong. That neutrality. Not every time you're giving me problems, God, every day, every Friday I go to temple, every Tuesday I go to temple, I do this seva, I do this, I do that, yet you're giving me problem. If you want God to help you, then you must let God deal with your inadequacies, deal with your insufficiencies, deal with all the bad qualities you have, all the bad thoughts you have. Then only he can help you. But the moment he starts dealing with you, a surgeon has to cut with the scalpel in order to heal. The same concept is what in verse 33 Patanjali is saying. Right? Verse 34. Prachardana vidharanabhyam va pranasya. Prachardana means exhalation. Vidharanabhyam means inhalation. Pranasya means vital energy. Prana asya, vital energy as a result of the regulation of breathing. So that verse means by regulating the exhalation and inhalation, your vital energy becomes energized. But you see, he talks about exhalation and inhalation, provided that exhalation and inhalation is done correctly. Now he's talking about the fourth stage, which is pranayama. Because he's talking how to improve your pratyahara, right? So he's going back to pranayama and saying only through the process of correct inhalation and exhalation can you revitalize that energy, that prana. This, of course, you can learn from anything or from anyone, but it must be one who has mastered that act himself or herself that can deliver that knowledge to you, right? That is why only a few fortunate students always improve and progress and evolve as far as yoga is concerned. You meet so many people. Oh, for 3 years I've been going for yoga. So, but yeah, we enjoy the exercise. But what is your progress? What is your spiritual progress? Yoga means, the mind must have been tamed. After 2-3 years, the mind must have been even more tamed so that the body can be aligned to that mind, so that the mind and the body can then latch onto the spirit. How many of us or how many of you out there who've been doing yoga for many years are in that stage of realization or in that stage of the journey, right? That's verse 34. 35 is talking about something else. 35 is going on to talk about Vishayavati va pravritti utpana manasa stithi nibandhani. He's saying Vishayati means like, normal stuff, your normal sense, Va pravritti means the operation. Va pravritti means the normal way, the modus operandi, if you like, for want of a better word, right? Utpana means that which brings about, right? The result, produces. Manasa, manas, mind. And sthiti means steadiness as a result of nibandhani. Nibandhani means fusion. Okay? So what it basically means is fusion and steadiness of the mind is produced by the operation of the mental, emotional energy towards an object, which is different too, but similar to something that is ordinary or normal. Right? So what does he mean here? This is where he says perception. He talks about perception, right? Spiritual perception. So when you look at something, I always talk about in many of my talks and satsangs I've spoken about, what we call paradigm shift. Paradigm shift. That means you look at something, but the way you perceive and the way you interpret and the way you translate what you perceive is completely different to a normal set of eyes. The visual eyes that will, give that a stigmatized translation, a stigmatized transliteration, a stigmatized explanation. The yogi will give a different one. This is what he's saying. The supernatural or spiritual perception, which is developed in the psyche of a yogi, especially when he is taming, controlling, and managing the buddhi organ through curtailing and stopping or derailing or detracting the imagination faculty. So I said it is, the operation of your thought process, your mental, emotional energy towards an object which is different. That's the imagination, but similar to a normal thing, right? Visaya. Visaya means normal sense of object. Vati means something is similar. Pravarti means operation, right? So when you continuously do something, the way you see things, the way you speak, the way you act, the way you react, well, actually you stop reacting, you start responding, right? And that's the beauty of yoga. He says the way you start to see things, it will be completely different. Sthiti nibandhani, that's why he's saying, the manas, right, becomes steady as a result of this fusion between your yogic practice and supernatural or spiritual perception. Now you've elevated yourself. Otherwise, you look at something and you straight away give a bhumi-based perception, isn't it? Beautifully you say. 36, he's talking about Vishokha va jyotismati. Vishokha va jyotismati. Vishokha means sorrowless, sorrowless. Shokha, right? Sokham, sokha, sorrow. Vishokha means sorrowless. Or jyotishmati, spiritual, jyoti, jyoti, tejas, that spiritual illuminance. Spiritually, you become luminous. Jyotismati. This you can get only by a state of sorrowless and that tejasness. What can you get? What he's saying in 35. How to elevate yourself from normal, mundane perception and explanation of that perception to something that relates to universal perception, energy-based perception, only through always being in a state of sorrowless and luminous. So not in Karma-ganda stage, Jnana-ganda stage, right? So every day if you sit and repeat Om 300 times, it's not going to change you. Physically, you have to become that which is slowly detaching from all the doshas of the world that surround you. That is the experience that can give you that sense of elevation. That's 36. 37, he's going on to say again how to do that. Vitharaga visayam vachittam. Vitha means without. Raga means craving. Visayam means an object or a person. Chittam, of course, is chitta, thoughts, right? So by fixing the mental, emotional energy or your thoughts on someone who is without craving. That's why they say use the Panchabhutas when you are meditating. Listen to the sound of water because the water is non-attached. Listen to the light or visualize the light because the light is, it doesn't say I only give light to Vignesh, I don't give light to Ganesh, I don't give light to Mohan, I don't give light to Kumar, nothing, no. Light, whoever can benefit, everybody can benefit, but whoever does what they need to do will benefit. Light is non-discriminatory. Water is non-discriminatory. Air is non-discriminatory. Space is non-discriminatory. And of course, fire is non-discriminatory. Right? So he's saying, if you cannot do it on your own, then your fixation in the mind should be on a greater person. This is what I explained earlier, Ekalavya to Dronacharya. Right? One may, by association with a great yogi, that yogi, of course, is free from craving, from developing any sense-based relations with the external world, right? He or she can then stop the razzy-dazzy operations of the mind. Such associations will stop you from being enchanted continuously by all these external energies. Every day you're exposed to all these energies. Every day you're exposed to all these good energy, bad energy. You say positive, you say negative, you say right, you say wrong. Yeah, because half of you is good, half of you is bad. Which side wins is a daily battle, right? That's where the science of yoga says, no, in order to win, right, you have to go to a stage of swapna. Even though you are not in the stage of swapna, your mind has to go in a state of dreamless sleep, right? So in 38, he's saying, swapna nidra jnana alambhanam va. Swapna means dream. Nidra means dreamless state. Jnana means information or knowledge. Alambhanam means pushing you to take a recourse, right? So by taking steps or by taking a recourse to dreaming or going into a dreamless state, this is by recitation of Om. You're going into a physically awake but mentally asleep. That means your mind is close to all kinds of external thoughts, sound, sight, feeling, all of that. So if you're in that state, even if a bee stings you, you won't feel it. That's the state I'm talking about, dreamless state, right? Some yogis, they are objectively conscious in a dreamless state. So these are people who can then teach you the skill of how to be asleep when you are awake, how to be experiencing the superconscious when you are in a conscious state of asana or in a press, as you are sitting, you can go and you can see things and you can see movements, you can feel the movements like that. This is what he's saying, swapna nidra jnana alambhanam va. Right? By taking a recourse to dream or a dreamless state of sleep, through a yogi, one can move his state of elevation from the conscious to the subconscious, and then from the subconscious to the superconscious. You still can't do it? Then in 39 it tells you, Yathabi matha dhyanatva. Yathabi matha dhyanatva. Yatha. Yatha means according to. Like, yatho. Yatha means same, right? Abhimatha means what is dearly desired. Dhyana. Dhyanat. Dhyana means, of course, where you put your mind in a stage where it can relate to a higher energy, higher conscious energy, right? So he's saying, if you cannot attach yourself to a yogi who can teach you how to be, be existing in a dreamless state of sleep, this control of mind, basically. He's saying it can be achieved from the effortless linkage of your own mind to a higher concentration of universal force. If that's what you dearly desire. Yatha abhimatha dhyanatva. If that's what you really want, you on your own can do it, so long as you make that link. That link can be made effortlessly once you detach yourself from all the external surroundings. You yourself can do it. You don't need a yogi. But if you're idle, like what? If you have a quality of sthayana, then you need someone to push you. Small boat, big boat, tug. But how long that big boat will tug you, that is entirely up to your own progress or elevation. If you remain like that, you keep doing the same thing all the time, you will experience the same result. I always say that. If you change some of the thing, some of the results will change. If you change your entire modus operandi, the way you operate, the way you think, the way you speak, the way you act, then every result will change. Isn't it? This is abhimatha, right? The entire process of bhakti changes. Okay? Like Meera, it did not make a difference to her who was sitting in front of her listening to her wondrous, melodious voice. Because in her mind, she only focused on one thing. That is Krishna. And even when Krishna was physically present in front of her, it didn't make a difference, because in her mind, she was effortlessly linked to that higher force of universal energy. That is Krishna. In 39, Patanjali is saying, you are able to do that. If you cannot, link up with someone who can help you do that, do it on your own. You are entirely capable of doing that, right? Verse 40, he's talking about Paramanu Paramam Mahatvantha Asya Vashikaraha. Right? Paramanu. Parama means small. Anu means like an atom. Anu. Parama Mahatattva means of the greatest or the largest. Anta means extending. Asya means extending something, right? Could be him, her, that, it. Vashikara means the force of pulling, like magnetic pull. In other words, contextually, it would also mean when you master something that you've got it, that like a magnetic pull, you've got it, right? The mastery of psyche results in control of the relationship between the smallest and the largest, right? So here he's talking about, right? Paramanu. Anu means small, like atom, but Paramanu means the smallest. And Parama Mahatva means the biggest. He says, when you stop distinguishing between the size, whether it's a Paramanu or a Paramatattva, then your mind attracts the mastery of the psyche, where you're able to control that sense of discrimination. Wow, fantastic. So you are not in control of that Anu, the small thing, or the Mahatva, which is the big thing, but you can control your sense of conscious energy to merge with them, and you are at balance, whether it is small or whether it is huge. It makes no difference to your sense of energy, because those energies are twinned. You see? Verse 40, fantastic verse, right? Because otherwise you will react to, oh, this is small, this is big, this is the good, this is bad, this is tasty, this is not tasty, all those kind of things will make a difference, right? 41. 41 is a long one. 41 is a long one. So, Shine Vritte Abhijatasya Ivamane Grahtir Grahana Grahyeshu Tashta Tadajjanatha Samapati. Krishna or Ksina. Krishna or Ksina means reduction. Vritte means thought-related operations or thought-related process or thought-related occurrences. Abhijatasya means what is being produced as a result of that. Ivamane means like. Mane means that which you see, like money can also means money, like a gem, money, like chudha money. Money means a gem, money. Grahatir means one who perceives. Grahana means the flow of perception. The grahatir, the perceiver, has a sense of grahana. That means the flow, the perception. And of course, grahyeshu is what is perceived. Tathastha means that's the basis. Tat ajnanatha samapati. That means assuming you are looking at perceiving, you are perceiving something, the perceiver will perceive that according to what his own thoughts are. That is the linkage, samapati. It cannot be you look at something and then you think something totally different unless your mind is vibrating in that energy. Otherwise, he says you're very human, right? You become totally preoccupied, isn't it? Sometimes when you talk to people, you say, what's wrong? You look so preoccupied. What do you mean when you say that? Right? Because your mind, you are present in a different place, talking to people, but your mind is engrossed in some gross objects or some endearing feeling that is taking you away from the present moment. This is what he's saying, right? With regards to the great reduction of the mental, emotional, thought process operations, there is a fusion. There is a fusion of the perceiver, the flow of perceptions, what is perceived, just like the absorption of a transparent money jewel. When you see a normal stone and you see a diamond, what you perceive, the flow of your thought process, the perception, is just like what you see, isn't it? So it's directly linked. So he's saying, have that thought with everything. not just with some things, like a diamond, like a money. So that is 41. In 42, he is talking about Tatra Shabdartha Jnana Vikalpai Sankirna Savitharka Samapati Tata Tatra. It's the same thing. That means here, there, in this case, Tata. Shabda means word, sound. Artha means meaning of that sound. Jnana means knowledge. Vikalpe means without any option or without any alternative, right? Uncertainty, in other words. And of course, Sankirna means blending together, right? Savitarka, thoughtfulness, a sense of reasoning, right? A sense of deliberation. And of course, Samapati means what, in the last verse, so there was Samapati, fusion or linkage. So he's going on to further explain or further elaborate on 41. In 42, he says, in that case, I was referring to 41, that deliberate linkage of the mental, emotional energy, thought. And whenever I use mental, emotional energy, I'm talking about chitta, thoughts, to a higher concentrating force, universal energy, when a word, its meaning, and the knowledge of the object alternate with the mind. That's because your thought process is vibrating at that level. That's why they say, whatever you say, the word must be interpreted in the context of that conversation, right? So one word can carry many, many meanings. The meaning will only blend with the context in which it was said, right? So if I'm talking about the weather and I use the word sun, I'm talking about the sun, S-U-N. But if I'm not talking about the weather and I use the word sun, you have to think, does he mean the sun or does he mean, a male child to a parent? So this is what he's saying. The perceiver, the flow of perception, and what is perceived must not change according to what you see. It has to be the same sense of approach so that your mind becomes rational, and then slowly that rationality will lead to indifference. That's it. Once you're indifferent, you have reached that level. Until you discriminate and say these, that, the other, that process of jumping from one state of consciousness to a higher state of consciousness will not happen. That's why he's saying link, right? He's talking about that linkage. Now, I did say to you that I will give you some mudras today, right? You must understand that mudras are many types of mudras. Okay. So there could be hasta mudras, that means what you do with your hands. There could be netra mudras, what you do with your eyes. And there could be deha mudras, what you do with your body. There's asana, the yoga positions, they're all deha mudras. But you can, without doing that, you can just sit in one place and do things with your hands. And those mudras will also help you equally, right? But there has to be abhyasa and vairagya. There's continuous practice, and that practice must lead to detachment. Now, a lot of people do not know that mudras, if not done in the right way, will not give you the right results. For example, if you just take the simple, jnana mudra or gyan mudra, which is basically this, right? This, right? This thumb is the Paramatma, and this, this index finger is the Jivatma. So Jivatma must always succumb to the Paramatma, right? And this is the three gunas, right? You have three gunas. And the same with the other hand, right? Mudras must be done with both hands. Why both hands, right? Because when you do it with your right hand, right, you are looking at the solar energy in your body, which is on the right hand side. When you do things with your left hand, you are looking at the lunar energies in your left side of the body. The right side represents the mind. The left side represents, right side represents the sun, and the left side represents the moon, right? And There are certain things at a certain time, you have to do it like this. That means your palm is facing upwards. And certain times of the day, you have to do it this way. That means your palm is facing downwards, right? This relates to energy from the sun. So if the sun is up before sunset, then whatever mudras you're doing, make sure the palm is facing upwards. After sunset, whatever mudras you're doing, make sure the palm is facing downwards. Because when you activate the lunar energies, you are activating the Pingala Nadi. When you activate the lunar side, right, you are activating the Ida Nadi. Pingala and Ida. That is what controls the energy in the middle called Shukshma Nadi, right? So let me give you a simple one. Like Jnana Mudra, right? Jnana Mudra is just this, right? Depends on the day of the time you do it. If your hands are facing, your palm is facing upwards, your palm is facing the ceiling or the sky, that is called Chin Mudra. Chin Mudra. It's facing downwards, it can be Jnana Mudra. That's one mudra you can do. And mudras means you do that at least for 10 minutes whilst breathing in and out, in and out, in and out. You do that maybe for 10 minutes and then you stop, then do for another 10 minutes. And then the evening you do 10 minutes, stop, and then do for another 10 minutes. Or simple one, you can do the Namaskara Mudra, which is both your hands clasped together. The tips of your fingers are all touching, right? With your palm like that. And then bring it down to your heart chakra, just at the part where, this part, right? If you bring it there and just breathe for 5 minutes, continuously holding it in position, then rest for a minute, then do it for another 5 minutes. You do it in the morning, as I said, between 4 and 7. If you can't, when you get up, you can do, as long as the sun is up, you do that. That basically balances the entire senses in your body. Namaskara Mudra and Jnana Mudra facing downwards, Chin Mudra facing upwards. Remember, you're either energizing your right side, the Pingala Nadi, solar energy, or you're energizing the left side, which is the Chandra Nadi or Ida Nadi. Right? Next week, I will tell you about Adi Mudra or Brahma Mudra. That is going to give you some other things. So just sitting, straight with your back straight and regulating your breathing. That's by doing these mudras. You will be going to a different level of, health, realization of health, and a different sense of awareness of the conscious spiritual energy that comes to you when you attract it. You only get what you attract. And how do you attract? Thought process. So how you think is what you attract. I say, think always good things, think always positive things, say always good things, say always positive things, do always good things, do always positive things. Then that is what will come back to you. Yet mano tat manushyaha, yet buddhi tat bhavati, yet bhavam tat bhavati. Right? Anyada sharanam nasti tumeva sharanam mamaha tasmat karunya bhavena raksha raksha yogishwaraha. Om Tat Sat. Thank you, Sai Ram.